Shango wasn't just a spaghetti western. It was chaos wrapped in leather chaps, a film that promised the perfect weapon but delivered the most broken prop in cinema history. But behind the dusty gunfights and desert showdowns, nothing went according to plan. The titular gun never fired once. They filmed in a location that could have killed everyone. An animal consumed something crucial to the story. One person fell so deeply asleep they had to be physically removed from their position, and a tiny creature became the film's most persistent enemy. These are 15 weird facts about Shango, the infallible gun. But first, let me tell you what happened to that supposedly perfect weapon.
1. The gun didn't work.
His gun! Get his gun!
Despite its bold title, promising firearm perfection, the Infallible Gun featured the most unreliable prop weapon in spaghetti western history. The signature revolver, supposedly a custom-made piece that never misfired, jammed so consistently that director Giulio Mancini had to completely restructure scenes around its mechanical failures. The crew discovered the problem during the first week of shooting, when star Antonio Sabato attempted his opening duel sequence. The hammer refused to cock, the cylinder wouldn't rotate, and at one point the entire barrel assembly came loose in his hand. Rather than replace the prop, the cash-strapped production decided to work around it. This led to some of cinema's most creative gunfight choreography, quick cuts that avoided showing the trigger pull, dramatic close-ups of eyes instead of weapons, and an unusual number of dramatic pauses that were actually desperate attempts to fix the mechanism off camera. Crew members nicknamed it the most fallible gun in Europe, and the irony wasn't lost on anyone. 2. The director was fired mid-shoot halfway through production. Original director Giulio Mancini was unceremoniously removed from the project after presenting producers with an ambitious and completely insane creative vision. During a heated meeting, Mancini announced he wanted to transform the entire spaghetti western into a full-blown opera, complete with arias, orchestral interludes, and sung dialogue. The breaking point came when Mancini hired a vocal coach and began forcing actors to rehearse their gunfight scenes as musical numbers. Antonio Sabato was reportedly asked to sing his way through the saloon showdown while maintaining his tough guy persona. The producers watched in horror as their gritty western transformed into something resembling a deranged Broadway production. When confronted about the radical departure from the script, Mancini defended his vision passionately, claiming the film was meant to be sung and that traditional Western dialogue was artistically bankrupt. He was replaced the next day by assistant director Paolo Cavara, who immediately banned all musical instruments from the set. 3. The lead actor never held a gun before Antonio Sabato.
The peons are armed! Search everywhere, everybody! Oh! There's 2 more rifles.
Despite being cast as the fastest draw in the West, harbored a secret that would have horrified Western fans. He had never fired a real gun in his life and was absolutely terrified of blank rounds. His inexperience with firearms created unexpected challenges that became visible in every single duel scene. During pre-production, Sabato confessed his fear to the crew, explaining that he'd grown up in a peaceful Italian village where the loudest sound was church bells. The first time a blank round fired near him, he visibly jumped and blinked so hard it looked like he was having a seizure. Rather than replace him, the production decided to work with his natural reactions. If you watch closely, Sabato's nervous blinking is present in every gunfight, a tic that actually added an unexpected layer of tension to his character. Fans later interpreted this as a sign of his character's intense concentration, not knowing their Western hero was simply trying not to flinch every time someone pulled a trigger. 4. It was shot in a desert, full of landmines production.
Why am I here? I'm locked up in a cage again. Why are they looking for me?
Took a dangerous turn when location scouts chose a Spanish army training ground that hadn't been properly cleared of explosives from the 1940s. The desert location looked perfect for their Western showdown, but beneath the sand lay decades-old ordnance that turned every day of shooting into a potential disaster. The crew discovered the problem during the second week when a grip spotted something metallic glinting in the sand. Military experts were called in and confirmed the area was littered with old training mines and unexploded shells. Rather than relocate, which would have bankrupted the production, they decided to continue filming with extreme caution. Production had to pause multiple times when crew members spotted suspicious objects buried in the sand. The most terrifying moment came when a camera operator nearly stepped on what appeared to be a live grenade while setting up for a wide shot. The Spanish army eventually provided a mine detector, but the crew joked they were making the most literally explosive Western ever filmed. 5. The title was picked from a hat.
Drop your guns.
The film's title came from one of cinema's most ridiculous decision-making processes. After weeks of heated arguments, the producers couldn't agree on a name for their Western. The creative team had generated dozens of options, from the generic Desert Justice to the pretentious Blood on the Horizon. But every suggestion sparked another argument. Finally, in a moment of desperation, producer Mario Castellani suggested they settle the matter with pure chance. He grabbed a hat from the costume department and had everyone write their favorite titles on slips of paper. The options included The Iron Trigger, Dust Devils, The Infallible Gun, Sunset Vengeance, and The Last Bullet. With the entire crew watching, Castellani was blindfolded and reached into the hat. His fingers closed around a crumpled piece of paper, and when he read The Infallible Gun aloud, the room erupted in laughter. Given the prop gun's notorious unreliability, the title felt like cosmic irony. They decided fate had spoken, and the name stuck. 6. Fake bullet holes were drawn with lipstick budget constraints.
Fire! Fire!
Led to some of the most creative and ridiculous special effects in Western history. When the production ran out of money for proper squibs and fake blood, desperate makeup artists turned to an unlikely substitute, red lipstick from the local pharmacy. The technique was discovered by accident when makeup artist Carla Betty grabbed the wrong tube while touching up an actor's wound. She realized the bright red lipstick, when smeared and darkened with a bit of dirt, looked surprisingly convincing as a bullet hole on the dusty Western costumes. Word spread quickly through the cash-strapped crew. Soon, lipstick became the go-to solution for creating bullet wounds, knife cuts, and general violence-related injuries. The actors found it amusing that they were literally being made up with cosmetics typically used for romance scenes. The technique worked so well that several other low-budget westerns adopted the lipstick bullet hole method. Revlon unknowingly became a staple of Italian western special effects. 7. A goat ate the script.
If you go to them and tell them the war is over, they won't believe you. They will kill you.
One of the most bizarre production delays in film history occurred when a set goat literally consumed a crucial portion of the screenplay. The incident happened during a particularly chaotic afternoon when the crew was filming in a Spanish village that doubled as their western town. A local goat, curious about the film equipment, wandered onto the set while the crew was on lunch break. The animal discovered the script pages that had been left on a table under a makeshift tent. By the time anyone noticed, the goat had methodically chewed through 17 pages of dialogue, including the entire third act climax. The screenwriter had kept only one copy of the most recent revisions, and those were now residing in the goat's stomach. Rather than panic, the crew decided to embrace the chaos and improvise scenes for the following week. Some of the film's most memorable moments, including the famous silent standoff sequence, were born from this livestock-induced creative emergency. The goat was eventually named an honorary crew member. 8. The composer wrote the score drunk Bruno Nicolai, standing in for the legendary Ennio Morricone, created one of the most unintentionally entertaining Western scores, while reportedly half-soused on cheap vermouth. The composer had been struggling with writer's block and decided to lubricate his creativity with liberal amounts of alcohol. The recording sessions became increasingly surreal as Nicolai's sobriety decreased and his musical ambitions expanded. Musicians reported that he would conduct with exaggerated, theatrical gestures while humming along off-key. During one particularly inspired moment, he allegedly tried to incorporate a mariachi trumpet section into a funeral scene. The final recordings captured not just the music, but the chaos of their creation. If you listen carefully to the saloon fight sequence, you can actually hear someone laughing in the background, reportedly Nicolai himself, who found his own musical choices hilarious. The score's uneven tempo and occasional wrong notes became part of its charm. Critics later praised the unconventional and daringly loose musical arrangements, never knowing they were hearing the sound of artistic intoxication. 9. The hero's hat was stolen Antonio Sabat to
You're mad. Let me go. He'll kill you all.
his signature black hat, a crucial element of his character's iconic look, was stolen by an overzealous fan after a night shoot, creating a continuity nightmare that plagued the rest of production. The hat had been specially weathered and shaped to give Sabatu's character a distinctive silhouette, and its loss forced the costume department into panic mode. The theft occurred during filming in a Spanish village where locals had gathered to watch the Western being made. After wrapping a particularly dramatic scene, Sabato left his hat on a fence post while talking to crew members. When he returned, both the hat and several enthusiastic spectators had vanished into the night. Desperate to maintain continuity, the costume department scrambled to find replacements, but nothing matched the original's specific shape and wear pattern. If you watch the film carefully, you can spot at least 3 different hats in the later scenes. A slightly wider brim here, a different color there, none quite matching the original. The inconsistency became a running joke among crew members who dubbed it the mystery of the multiplying hat. 10. The film's poster features the wrong actor.
My friend, you are up to your neck in trouble. If the Yankees catch you, they will hang you.
One of the most embarrassing marketing mistakes in film history occurred when early promotional posters featured Gianni Garco, a popular spaghetti western star who wasn't even in The Infallible Gun. The mix-up happened at the printing company, where a harried graphic designer grabbed the wrong publicity photos from a stack of western movie materials. The error went unnoticed until the posters were already distributed to theaters across Italy. Moviegoers arrived expecting to see the famous Django actor, only to find Antonio Sabato in the starring role. The confusion was compounded by the fact that Garco's poster image showed him in a nearly identical Western outfit, making the switch seem almost intentional. Rather than recall the expensive posters, the producers decided to embrace the mistake and use it as a marketing opportunity. They created a tongue-in-cheek advertising campaign suggesting that The Infallible Gun was so action-packed that even actors not in the movie wanted to be associated with it. The wrong actor posters became collector's items, more valuable than the corrected versions that followed. 11. The Village That Never Retired. The dusty Mexican village you see in Shango, The Infallible Gun, wasn't exactly a one-film wonder. This ramshackle collection of adobe buildings and wooden balconies turned into a revolving door for spaghetti westerns throughout the early 70s. If the saloon looks familiar, it's because you've probably watched it get shot up in Django, Kill Django, and Black Killer sometimes, with this same fake bullet hole still patched over with fresh plaster. The production never bothered to disguise much either. They'd swap out a few signs, hang a new set of wanted posters, and call it a day. For genre fans, spotting the recycled balconies and archways has become a running joke, like a cinematic game of Where's Waldo, only with more dust and dynamite. 12. The ending was changed on a bet.
Scott!
The film's unconventional climax, where the hero defeats the villain with a knife throw instead of his famous gun, came about because of a drunken bet between the producer and screenwriter. During a late-night tavern argument about Western cliches, producer Mario Castellani challenged writer Franco Rossetti to create an ending where the infallible gun was never fired. Rossetti, emboldened by wine and wounded pride, accepted the challenge, boasting that he could write a more dramatic conclusion than any traditional shootout. The bet was simple. If he could create a satisfying ending without using the titular weapon, Castellani would pay for a week's worth of drinks for the entire crew. The screenwriter disappeared for 2 days, emerging with a completely rewritten final act that replaced the expected duel with a tense psychological standoff, ending in a perfectly aimed knife throw. When Castellani read the new ending, he had to admit it was more original than anything he'd seen in recent westerns. He lost the bet gladly, and the crew enjoyed their free drinks while filming one of the most unusual Western conclusions ever committed to celluloid. 13. One scene was lit with car headlights. When the production's temperamental generator failed during a crucial night shoot, the resourceful crew improvised one of the most unconventional lighting setups in Western history. The scene, a tense showdown between the hero and villain in the town's main street, couldn't be postponed without losing the location for the following day. With professional lighting equipment useless, the crew positioned 4 Fiat automobiles at strategic angles around the set, using their headlights to illuminate the actors. Additional atmosphere was created with torches and lanterns, giving the scene an eerie, flickering quality that was never intended but worked surprisingly well for the dramatic confrontation. The improvised lighting created harsh shadows and dramatic contrasts that enhanced the tension between the characters. The car headlights provided a steady, bright illumination, while the torches added movement and warmth to the scene. When the film was released, critics praised the innovative and atmospheric lighting in the showdown sequence, never knowing they were watching a scene lit by Italian automotive engineering and medieval fire technology. 14. The film was banned in Sweden. The Infallible Gun achieved the dubious honor of being banned in Sweden, where censors objected to what they termed irresponsible use of firearms and cited the movie's exaggerated kill count and endless gun spinning as promoting dangerous behavior. The Swedish Board of Film Classification issued a scathing review that became more entertaining than the movie itself. The censors were particularly concerned about scenes showing characters spinning loaded weapons, fanning hammers, and engaging in elaborate quick-draw contests. They argued that Swedish audiences might attempt to recreate these unsafe firearm practices, despite the fact that handgun ownership was extremely rare in Sweden. The irony wasn't lost on the Italian producers, who pointed out that their irresponsible gun use was largely fictional, since their main prop barely functioned. The ban generated unexpected publicity across Europe, with other countries' censors rushing to review the film. The Swedish prohibition became a selling point in Italy, where theaters advertised it as the Western too dangerous for Sweden. The film was eventually released there in 1973, with significant cuts to the gun, spinning sequences, 15. A fly ruined dozens of takes.
Come on, move it!
The film's most persistent enemy wasn't rival gunfighters or harsh desert conditions. It was a single, determined fly that developed an obsession with villain actor Franco Nero's nose. During close-up shots of the antagonist's menacing glare, the insect would inevitably land on his face at the most dramatically crucial moments. The fly appeared to be attracted to the actor's heavy stage makeup, which contained oils and powders that created an irresistible landing strip. Take after take was ruined, as the insect would buzz into frame just as Nero delivered his most threatening lines. The crew tried everything: fly spray, fans, even hiring a local boy to wave a towel off camera. But nothing deterred their six-legged saboteur. Editor Paolo Cavera spent hours in post-production, carefully selecting frames where the fly was absent, and piecing together a coherent performance from dozens of interrupted takes. The final villain scenes represent a triumph of editing over entomology. Nero later joked that the fly gave a more consistent performance than he did, and the crew credited the insect as uncredited scene stealer in the film's internal production notes. Entomology. Nero later joked that the fly gave a more consistent performance than he did, and the crew credited the insect as uncredited scene stealer in the film's internal production notes.